Good late morning or early afternoon, everybody. Thank you for joining us today. We are excited that you guys could be here with us. We know it's been a crazy week for everybody and time is flying as usual, but we're going to have some fun today. As we look at what you have, I am Stephen Kern, Director of Sales, and I am joined by my partner, Chris.
Hey, everybody. Thanks for joining us today. It's good to see everybody. I haven't been on these in a little while and excited to dive back in.
Well, as we talk about diving in today, we really want to just go through a quick introduction. And as we look at the anatomy of a sales call, well, we're going to talk to you guys about building rapport, the actual breakdown of that sales call and the anatomy of it, handling objections, and then how to actually close deals. But we would be remiss if we didn't start off with some fun here too. So Chris, did I cut you off before you were going to say something?
No, I was just going to say, keep in mind, everybody, that today's really sales focused. This is not a deep dive into digital products. This is more of an overall sales training. So please share this with your teams, with your reps, with your AEs, anybody who just needs a little jolt to get those sales numbers up. I know everybody is struggling a little bit right now, but we're going to dig ourselves out of this. And I think that there's a lot of positive to look forward to. And so this is really about the sale and how to close those deals. So sorry to cut you off, Stephen.
That was perfect. Glad you jumped in. And as usual, as you guys do have anything, feel free to put it into either the chat box or the Q&A, and Chris and I will get back to it as we can. So let's get started with one of our good friends and somebody we are all aware of and should know by now. But Tommy boy, take it away.
Of course I understand what no means. But if I took no for an answer, I'd probably wind up on a street corner selling spicy hot dogs and wearing a funny hat, right? It makes sense, doesn't it?
Look, I've been doing business with Callahan since I hung out my shingle. But I don't like you. Probably never will. You're a smug, unhappy little man, and you treat people like they were idiots.
Mr. Brady, you and my dad go way back.
Son, I was sorry to hear about your dad. I was. But before I decide to keep my business with your place, I'd have to come by and have a look at your new operation.
Hey, I tell you what, you can take a good look at a butcher's ass by sticking your head up there, but wouldn't you rather take his word for it?
What? I'm failing to make the connection here, son.
No, I mean, you can get a good look at a T-bone by sticking your head up a butcher's ass, but then, no, it's got to be your bull.
Wow.
Here's the deal. If I want you...
You have derailed.
Shut up, Richard.
Boy, I'm really at a loss for words here.
Forget it, I quit. I can't do this anymore, man. My head's about to explode. My whole life sucks. I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know where I'm going. My dad just died. We just killed Bambi. I'm out here getting my ass kicked, and every time I drive down the road, I want to jerk the wheel into a goddamn bridge in Bunman.
We'll be in touch.
Wow. I am glad I could mute myself and not laugh out loud for everybody here, but I can tell you I've had some strange calls, never anything quite this interesting, and I can only hope the same for all of you as well. But there are a lot of similarities we can draw between the sales process, building rapport. So as we look at this, the one thing that we always kind of want to bring it back to and reiterate is that we're all sellers. And as a seller, you've been told this from day one, but sales is a numbers game. And as we talk about the things we're going to cover today, the goal is for you guys to start thinking about those numbers. And the goal is to improve over time, to know what it takes so that we can actually work smarter and not harder. And there are multiple ways, obviously, within your own organizations or within ours to help you kind of find that out and to track that stuff with you. But knowing your numbers and what it takes to be successful is always square one as we look at starting that sales process, getting into sales calls, CNAs, and all the things that we're going to discuss today. So I'm going to turn it over to you, Chris, and we're going to start talking about building rapport.
Totally. And one thing that I will say from the last slide is that one thing that I am notorious for preaching over and over again is that proposals equal revenue. This is something that we have talked about over and over, but you can't get to the proposal phase unless you conduct a proper CNA. So you have to build the rapport, you have to get the details from the client, and we have to dive in and make sure that we're building those relationships in order to drive business later on. So, when it comes to building a rapport with your partners or the clients, obviously we do white labeled calls, so include us on any and all of those when you can, but we need to connect on a personal level. Like, people understand when you're being fake or when your sales reps are being fake, and it means a lot to build a rapport with those clients and make sure that you're establishing those relationships. You may not always get that sale in that first meeting, but the more you work on that relationship, the deeper you go, the longer that relationship's going to last, and the more business you can get from those folks.
And as we look at some of those things, honestly, I just have to jump in and embarrass myself a little bit, but building rapport looks at a lot of different things. It starts with some of these other, things you'll see here, but being genuine or going above and beyond. I actually had a scenario once where I was stuck calling on the same person over and over. I really wanted this business, so I kept going in, and I came to find out, or so I was told, that this person was an avid sailor, and not like I have my own sailboat and I need to put a sweater around my shoulders, but supposedly like a nautical old school sailor. So I came in one day wearing a sailor hat. The receptionist laughed so hard that it actually brought the decision maker out because he thought something was wrong. I ended up getting the sale, even though it was only temporary, but it's amazing the things that you can do. So don't be afraid. Take interest in their business, get a little outside the box, but rapport is important and one of those things that will get you further with your customers.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, focus on the partner, make sure you understand their business before you go in. We're going to dive into this in a lot of detail here in a moment, but make sure that you know the business, make sure you know what's going out there. Obviously, be respectful. Make sure that you are setting time aside to really devote that to them. Make sure that you keep it short if you need to. These days, an hour-long meeting is a lot of time. And if you're doing a CNA, you can tighten that up, do 30, 45 minutes. Make sure that you are really focused and prepared as you go in there. And then also give yourself credit. Make sure that you go in with the feeling of, hey, I'm the expert here, but I'm here to help this person with their business and make sure that they succeed as well as myself. So give yourself credit. Typically, more than most people when it comes to digital selling. So let's talk a little bit about the anatomy of a sales call. So people buy people. We all know this. We're all in a sales-driven business here. Be genuine, show that you care about their business. There's a lot of things that you can do before you go on that sales call that mean a lot to that particular seller. And so you really want to make sure that you're conducting the right research. Use the tools at hand. Obviously, Google is going to be your number one asset here. Make sure that you're researching their business. You're looking at their website, you're clicking around, you're looking at all the pages that eventually could be, click through URLs, those types of things. Make sure you understand their locations. Do they have multiple locations? Identify who the key decision makers are. Ask who's going to be the final person making the decision on that sale. Let them talk. One of the things that I've learned a lot about from our CEO, Brock Berry, is be a good listener. Make sure that you're not just listening so that you can respond, but really pay attention to what they're saying and really make sure that that you are focused on their business and that you're coming back with questions that are going to lead to bigger opportunities later on in that conversation. And then define what successes mean. One of the things that I work with with reps a lot on sale or on training calls and biweeklies is making sure that you understand exactly what that customer's goal is. Focus on what it is that it's going to take to get them to succeed, and then you'll succeed with them later on. Oh, thank you. So, what if we told you that success of any campaign starts with a strong CNA? I talk a lot about the customer needs analysis. This is something that's really, really important. It's not us versus them. We want to make sure that we're having a good time, but we're also collecting as much information about them as we possibly can. Are they focused on a specific cost per lead or cost per acquisition? Those are really important things that you need to dive into. Ask open-ended questions. You'll find that most small business owners are going to be thrilled to talk about their own business. You need to ask open-ended questions so that you can allow them to continue to talk over and over about what's going on with their business, how they're faring through the economic climate, how they're getting the best sales, what leads are coming in. All that stuff is going to be really important. When you think you've asked enough questions, ask more. Come prepared with a list of questions. I wouldn't say read it off a notepad, but make sure that you have backup questions in order to keep that conversation going. You want to talk about their bandwidth, how we can take that business from them to make their lives a little bit easier. That's all very, very important stuff. And make sure that you leave with actionable items. One of the things that I've always tried to preach is make sure that you leave with the next sales call scheduled. So you've done the CNA. When can we come back and talk about the proposal? When can we run through this with you? When can we tell you what we're going to do to make sure that the goals that you put in place for us are going to be met? Review the plan, solutions, and solve the issues. What is their biggest issue? What are they dealing with that's really taking the most time out of their day? And how can we help alleviate some of that? What products are they currently using? One of the things that we talk to all of you guys about often is, a lot of clients may be doing paid search or something like that in-house. Great. How's that going? Are they seeing successes with it? Okay, fine. Let's focus on programmatic display because they're already seeing successes with that. Let's just add products in that are going to help them accomplish their goals. Are they running a full funnel strategy? This is something that we constantly talk about in the proposal phase. Are they doing everything they need to drive people down the sales funnel and get them to convert? That is really the most important piece. And then finally, something that I tell everybody very often is, do they have pixels in place? Do they have a Google Tag Manager? Something like that. Those are great. That's great information that we want to know right off the bat. And when it comes to pixels, the last thing you want to do is surprise somebody at the very end of a sales pitch with, oh, by the way, we need to put a line of code on the back end of your website. That tends to freak people out a little bit right off the bat. So make sure that you're talking about it early and often and explain why we have that in place and how we're going to help drive conversions to it.
All really great points. And as we look at all of these things, I mean, no two sales calls are going to be the same. So Chris made some really great things. These should be fluid, fun. We should truly care about their business. And everything that we're talking about is aimed at building that rapport, getting small little pieces of buy-in from your customers, because those are the things that through caring naturally get you closer and closer to a sale. And as we do this, we know that everybody here is a salesperson. We work with teams of salespeople. So this is not to tell you that obviously you don't know what you're doing or you're doing something wrong, but sometimes it's really hard to focus on some of the things that we're doing, the things that might improve our numbers, like asking open-ended questions, because a lot of times when we are in that mode and we're asking questions, we start asking close-ended questions and it can shut the conversation down really quickly. So these are just things to think about. And if we're doing it right, the biggest thing as salespeople we have all heard is you need to get a lot of yeses, but you are going to get objections. Very few sales calls you go on are you going to have objections. So I like to talk about this and reiterate to people that, a big takeaway here is these are objections, not rejections. And some of the best sales, the biggest successes you're going to have in the sales space are going to come from how you handle these objections. So we wanted to cover a few things that our team and in working with all of the great sellers that we do that we've learned. So the first one, be an ass. And this is an AAS, not the other kind, but it's a very simple term that I learned a long time ago to really make sure that you're taking those objections. It gives you time to think and then spinning it to where you need the direction to go. So if you were a seller and you had somebody give you an objection, you know what? That's just too expensive. The money's tight right now. First, you would want to affirm that. Oh, I definitely understand. Obviously, cash flow for any small business with the way the times are is important. You would then align. I myself am paycheck to paycheck too. I can't do a lot of things without planning ahead. So I totally understand that. But then taking that and using the other information they've given you in the CNA to move past it. But you also told me that at over $1,000 per, and with the bandwidth that you have of available trucks, let's say, for your home servicing company, We would only need to drive you an additional 10 leads at your 20% closing ratio to more than pay for this campaign and give you a positive 3-to-1 ROI. So this being an ass is something that has worked very, very well and something that is going to only help you not only build that rapport and align with them, but to ensure that you are protecting what you know to be true. And sometimes that is seen as being objective. You told me that, and in this case, we should. Is this true? Is this not? It is okay to push back on your customers because a lot of times they're the home service, the real estate, the retail, the education. That's what they're good at. They're not the marketers like you guys are. So being objective, making sure that, hey, you told me that if we could get you 20 more appointments per month, that you would be able to get that second or third truck you're looking to do. This plan will solve that. So we want to make sure, as Chris alluded to earlier, we are using the things that they are telling us to our advantage. We are using that in the things that we are saying back to them, but also standing by the things that we know as professional marketers. We want to be open. Oh, go ahead, Chris.
Oh, no, I was just going to say, no, please go ahead. You're good.
Next, we want to talk about being open. A lot of times we're so in a hurry to get past. Ooh, I got the answer I wanted. Boom, boom, boom. I'm off to the next. Let me check that question off on my sheet and go to the next one. A lot of times we need to slow down to speed up. It's one of my favorite things. One of my CROs says, Melissa Sheehan, but let's break that down further. You can still learn more about that facet of the business. A lot of times we're really quick to get the one point with it we need, but we haven't really covered all the bases. We haven't learned all we need to truly put together a successful plan or to solve the issues that our marketers have. So let's break that down further. What would you need to add another truck? How many customers do you need to walk through your door, Mr. or Mrs. Small Business Owner, to have this kind of a return? Keep them talking, as Chris said, and good things come of it. And quite frankly, be curious. Again, we should care about the people's businesses that we're working with. Being transactional has its place, but honestly, the more you care, the more likely you are to get the sale. So be curious. What about the pricing are you not comfortable with? What about this issue could we help solve? Getting down to the root of the issue is only going to allow you to be more specific with the solutions and tailor that plan to be successful.
I love that. That's what I was going to say, Stephen. Be curious. I've been on so many sales calls over the years, and I've learned so much about roofing companies and plumbers and every other business under the sun. And it's really funny when you start doing the research and then you go and talk to that small business owner, how many questions you find yourself coming up with. What type of siding do you use on this house? I didn't know anything about siding. Can you educate me? This shows that you are invested in helping this person in their business. Making sure that you understand the details about what's going on with their website. Are they having issues with it? Is there something about it that they don't like? Is there something that we can help improve so that they can add that next truck or that they can get that next sale or pull in that next lead? Making sure that you just have that buy-in and that you really genuinely are curious about their business. When you go in and you start to learn about a business that you didn't know anything about before, it is very, very interesting. And you just have to make sure that you're bought in and that you're really trying to learn as much as you possibly can from that sales call.
And so much of the success we see is when we become the expert in a business type. How many of you on this call would say, oh, I am the expert. I work with all automotive, or I am the education king. I work with so many schools. The more you know and you pick up, it only makes you more effective. So as we talk about knowing your numbers, being that actual person who cares, that consultative approach is only going to make you more of an expert, and it's going to help you close more sales.
Absolutely.
Did you know that not everyone closes all of the sales they start? That's
Definitely.
earth-shattering to me. I never knew that, Chris. Did you know that?
I have to say, I've been shot down plenty of times, enough to know that I don't close every sales call I go on.
And if we did, this background would be a beach. So we know that this is a work in progress. And again, these are just things for you guys to think about, for our team to be able to help support you with. And quite frankly, we're getting down to the brass tacks of what we're trying to accomplish here. And the goal of a sales call is obviously closing the sale. This is the home stretch. And this is actually where we have a lot of sellers who do everything up until this point great. They ask all the right questions. They've built the relationship. Their follow-up and execution is impeccable. And the biggest thing that we see happen a lot of times is that people don't actually ask for the business. They don't ask for the sale. How many times are you guys just walking by a store or something that, you know, you've considered or looked at and somebody just hands it to you like, hey, you look like you might want this. Here you go. It doesn't happen. And the more time you spend with somebody, they're going to have prior relationships. They're going to have other marketing people they work with. There are other mediums that they're using. We need to make sure as sellers that we are asking for the business. And there are multiple ways for us to ensure that we are asking for the business. This can be as simple as something like the summary close. We talked a lot about you having X, Y, and Z for issues and that we could do P, D, and Q. When can we start working together, start focusing on this for your business? Is October 1 a good start date? These are the actual buy-ins that you are going to need to close the sale. So don't be afraid to ask for it. Get those specific dates, have them place the pixels. All of those other things that we've talked about are going to help ensure that you're able to do that.
Yeah, I will say as a sales rep in my earlier years, this is one place where I struggle, is really just asking for the business. We've built this proposal for you. We've put this plan in place. When can we get started? I think that is really one piece that people struggle with quite a bit. And I think it's one of those easy things that you can learn and train your teams with. And just asking for the business is as clear cut as it can be.
Yeah. And a lot of times when you ask for the business, something that you'll see or find again is that you'll get that last objection out of the way. It's that last thing where they're going to be like, well, actually, I was going to hold off till Q1 or whatever that ends up being. So as we talk about this, that last objection is really where your final close is going to come. And there are a few different tactics you can use in this space. I personally, and as we look at the reasons that most people give as far as not to do business or to hold off, a lot of times it comes down to cost, for example. So one of my favorite closing tactics is called the Ben Franklin close. And in essence, what that is breaking it down to smaller numbers. You know, so if they were like, oh yeah, you're at 12,000, I was really hoping to be at 10, or I'm currently getting everything you're talking about at 10. Listen, Mr. and Mrs. Business Owner, we've talked, you told me X, Y, and Z, and you agreed with me when I asked you that this was the case. Did that change? No. As we look at that $2,000 over the course of a month, that's really only X dollars per day. And with your closing rate and average sale of this, that should be a no-brainer. You know, use it in terms that they can manage. My math, and I didn't pick very easy math numbers to do, but in a perfect world, it's like, oh, you have a $30 budget. Well, that's only $1 per day. You know, that's the type of thing where you can really break it down and get that moving in the right direction by taking those different spins and handling all of the objections. Don't be afraid to leverage your knowledge of those previous discussions. So as I just gave in some of those examples, use what they said, use the exact terminology. Ben has done this impeccably. And one of my favorite things that he talks about is we might have a different terminology for it than the business owner. And by calling it something else, you may actually be hurting yourself just in friendly banter and conversation. So take notes, write down the things that they're doing, write down their closing percentages, write down all of the different things that they are talking to you about for their business, and use those as we get those small check-ins or buy-ins throughout the process, those 5 to 10 yeses. And then certainly as we close, be able to restate everything that they told you about their business to make sure that not only you know about it, but we are recapping the goals. We are in the right place to initially start the campaign out from a place of power. The goal of all of these things, leave with those actionable items, know what they're doing success with, place the tracking. Because when you do that, when you start the campaign off and everything is in the right place to start, the results at the end of month 1, not month 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, month 1 will look better and help you not only secure the immediate business, but the long-term business for each and every one of your customers.
Yeah, Absolutely. That's all those are all critical pieces to this initial sales call, to the CNA, to closing the proposal. Make sure that they fully understand what's going to happen once we get the campaign started. Make sure that they understand what success metrics look like. We need to understand what their KPIs are, what their goals are from this campaign, and what sales and leads mean to them. So those are all critical pieces to any conversation that you start. And with that, we just want to say thank you. We really appreciate you guys joining us. Obviously, most of the time we get a little deep on digital, but we want to keep this high level. We want to make sure that people are out there selling. As we go into Q4, it's going to be more and more critical that we're putting those numbers on the board, but we also want to make sure that we are getting our goals aligned with that small to medium size business owner. We want to make sure that everybody in every campaign is headed in the right direction. So with that, we appreciate all of your time today. And if you guys have any questions, don't be shy. Stephen and I are here. Your AMs are here. We're all here to help.
Have a great day, everybody. Thank you so much.
Thank you.